Rivalry and the meaning of strength, desire, ego and humbleness, corruption and purity, passion, purpose in life, kingship. Record of Ragnarok is more than just incredible action and epic moments. It's a fight for humanity, not only to prove their own worth and their right to exist, but also to show the gods that they suffer from all the same flaws, emotions and desires as humans. It's a fight of pure ideals in the ultimate fight for survival, and each of the fights in this tournament represents clear themes and messages about life, humanity and purpose. And so that is what we shall discuss today. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell, as I cannot explain to you how much just a small action can do for this channel. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps check out my Patreon. Anyway, on with the video. The first round in the series is between Thor, God of Thunder and Lu Bu, Warlord of China, and well, out of all the fights in the series, I feel this one is the least lacking in themes, and well, that is understandable, as not only are our two fighters pure muscle heads, but also as the first fight in the series, it needs to draw readers in with epic action and not spend multiple chapters on backstories like in later fights, which comes at the cost of some themes, but even so the fight still lays a great groundwork for the series going forwards. But just because it has less of a thematic through line than other fights, doesn't mean it lacks any at all, as I believe the core theme of this fight is rivalry and the meaning of strength. Thor was the protector of Asgard. He used his immense physical might to fight off armies of giants and protect the realm, yet fighting for protection became boring to him. There was no challenge and so he saw no point in it. Lu Bu on the other hand was a warlord who fought for no other reason than to fight. But soon his own strength became too great. He grew unsatisfied since he could not find a rival to match his strength and so fell into despair. Thor and Lu Bu both faced a similar but different issue. Thor faced boredom and Lu Bu desired for a rival, and this fight of theirs solved both of these issues. Thor's boredom was squashed by Lu Bu and Thor became the rival Lu Bu was searching for. Thor now fought not because it was his duty as Asgard's protector, but because he wanted to do battle, because he learned to enjoy the thrill of a fight. And Lu Bu now fought in order to protect humanity as its vanguard fighter. By fighting for a purpose to protect his race, he was finally able to meet a rival worthy of him. He finally got the fight he had always searched for, an opponent that even his own strength could not overcome. As strength is not just about muscles and power, it's about why and how you use it. These two were saved by changing the reasons they fought, and because of that showcased the true nature of strength as a universal constant, be you human or god. Because there is more to a fight than just the stronger guy beating the weaker guy. And this first fight shows that this will be a constant throughout the story, something quite poetically showcased by the fact that this fight is between two muscle-headed brutes, the kind of people you expect to care about just fighting and nothing more. But again, as already said, I feel this fight has the weakest themes in the series, so let's move on to one with some of the strongest theming. The second fight of the series is Zeus vs Adam, which is my personal second favourite fight in the entire series. Not just because of how truly godly this fight is, but because it has some of the strongest thematic storytelling of the entire series. As this is a fight between the king of the gods and the father of all men, and this is where the excellent comparisons and contrasts between the two become clear. Zeus is the leader of the gods and most likely the strongest one in the series, and Adam is the father of men, the only person in history to unify the entire race as one, and again is probably the strongest human to ever live. However, the biggest difference between these arguably similar characters is their motive, the reason they fight, what they desire to achieve through their fight. Zeus simply wants to prove the might of the gods. He takes amusement in crushing humans underfoot, as the ants he believes they are. He wants to enjoy proving the superiority of the gods and show the pitiful humans why he is a god and they are just mere creations. It's a god's ego that drives his fighting spirit. But what Adam desires is a little different. At first we're led to believe that Adam is fighting out of revenge. It's the superior ego of the strong versus the revenge of the weak. But even if things like revenge and ego are very much human, they are not the core of what it means to be human. Adam as the first human personifies what it means to be human. He showcases the truest example of human nature, so why does he fight? For love and in order to protect his children. His desire is one of love. He believes it is the duty of a father to protect his children, that no reason is needed because it is in human nature to fight to protect what you love. It's the selfish ego of a god versus the selfless duty to protect of a human. Adam was said to have been thrown out of Eden for the greed of eating the apple, but in the story we are shown he instead ate the apple to save his wife Eve, to protect her because once again it is love that defines humans, love in the form of protection. As what does Zeus represent in counter to this? Destruction. Adam protects his family, whereas Zeus killed his family. Adam was made in God's image and so can only copy the techniques of the gods. But in a way he is more godlike than Zeus, as he has nothing to prove, he just fights for his own reasons, whereas Zeus fights to prove the might of the gods to satisfy his own pride. A god is a god because they don't need to prove themselves, yet in this fight only the god is the one fighting for ego. A god is meant to protect, but Zeus destroys. Throughout this fight we see Adam become more godlike, becoming nothing but a single purpose to protect, a guardian of all humanity despite their differences. Whereas Zeus becomes more and more human, he shows pride, fear, joy and anger. This fight perfectly showcases one of the key ideas of the series, that humans and gods are not all that different. By framing the most human of humans as divine and the greatest of gods as human, this fight illustrates that they aren't that different. Man was made in God's image, so it's only natural the two are the same in more ways than one. This fight then is one between desires, what the two desire to accomplish and prove, and so they fight to that end. Yet in the end the one to fall is Adam. He won the fight, no questions there, but he lost the match. He proved something in this match though, that the gods are not that different from the humans, and that a simple desire to protect can overcome even the literal concept of time, as even in death we see Adam's duty. He is standing fists raised to fight even after his heart has stopped. He is stood between the gods and his children as a wall to protect them even once he dies, a testament to his duty to protect. And further, he is smiling while doing this as he died doing what made him happy. His desire was to protect his children, and even if he died in the process, he went out true to that desire to the very end. Even the manner in which he died is thematic. He didn't die because he was killed by Zeus, he died because he burnt himself out, he worked himself to death. As humans, unlike gods, are mortals. They only have so much time in the world, so his death is so very human. He may have had the powers of a god, but he was still only human in the end, and so he died a so very human death. And to add even more to this, when he dies his eyes are blank, his eyes of the Lord are gone, and so he has lost his divine powers. All he was left with at the end of the fight was himself, because like how a father doesn't need a reason to protect their children, Adam only needs himself to protect them. Although humanity technically lost this fight, this was the fight that to me proved one simple fact, that the gods are not gods, they are just as fallible as everybody else, and that simple pride and anger cannot match up to a simple desire to protect your family. Now the third match of Ragnarok is my favourite fight in the entire series, with my favourite character in the series, Sasaki Kyojuro and his fight against the Zeus of the sea, Poseidon. Now even though Zeus is the king of the gods and arguably the strongest of all the gods, he, as I just explained, isn't very godlike himself. But Poseidon is the opposite. He is 100% a god in the way he acts. As to Poseidon, he is 100% a god in the way he acts. He is a god and everybody else is not. His pride is so great he sees everything that isn't him as mere filth. He has the ego and superiority of a god, which makes him perhaps the most godlike of all the gods we see in the series. As well, how are the gods presented? As prideful, egotistical, and up on a high horse. And well, Poseidon takes this up to another level. I mean, as shown by his encounter with Animus, with the gods in the crowd, and of course with Sasaki, Poseidon only looks at something he wants to kill, because nothing is worthy of even stepping into his sight. Being in this line of sight is enough to sentence you to death. I mean, water literally moves around him to let him pass. He is a god in all definitions of the word. Now compare that to Sasaki Kyojuro, the biggest loser in human history. He is someone who has no shame in giving up and begging for forgiveness. He has no qualms with losing or being seen as below others. In fact, he has nothing but respect for those above him because they are what allowed him to become strong. Whereas Poseidon sits at the top, Sasaki is always climbing further and further up. One is stagnant because they are too prideful to admit that they could ever lose, the other is always growing because they never want to reach the summit. These two contrast each other even more beautifully, to me at least, than Adam and Zeus, and their fight keeps up with brilliant contrast. The start of the fight has neither side moving, but whereas Poseidon just stands there because he is a god and has no need to make a move, Sasaki is constantly losing over and over in his head. He doesn't move because he, as a weak little human, is struggling to find a way to overcome a god. One does nothing, the other tries everything. Poseidon has absolute confidence in his own power. He doesn't train or struggle because he is a perfect being. There is no need for him to get stronger because he is a god and a god is perfect. He never even considers the possibility of losing to a human, as frankly his head is stuck too far up his own arse. Sasaki shows respect for Poseidon at the start of the fight, as to him any opponent is a sacred tool for him to get stronger. He is grateful to those who fight him, in contrast to Poseidon, who sees all others as filth. He underestimated the power of Sasaki due to his own hubris, due to the hubris of the gods. This fight then illustrates one very important point. Lubu and Adam lost due to their human bodies, Lubu being unable to take the full power of Thor's swing and Adam's body burning out. It is the bodies of humans that are their greatest weakness against the gods, hence why they must undergo Volond to fight them on equal terms. However, if the bodies of humans are their weakness, the thing that cost them their lives in the first 2 rounds, then the weakness of the gods is their hubris, and this is why Poseidon lost. Unlike Thor and Zeus, his opinion of humans did not change throughout the match. He ends the match with words that echo the same sentiment as the words he spoke when he entered the ring. He had no respect for his opponent, no desire to improve, and no one pushing him forward from behind. He was alone in the truest sense, and so he lost. He lost because ego alone does not make a warrior. One who has never lost can never truly understand the beauty of a win. This fight to me is the greatest in the series, as it so perfectly encapsulates the greatest attributes of humanity and the worst of the gods, which is of course why the 4th match contrasts the most prideful god with the most benevolent. Heracles represents the good in humanity, purity and justice, and his opponent Jack represented the bad in humanity, corruption and evil. And yes, it is Heracles, not Hercules, since he is a Greek god, not a Roman one, before anyone comments about my pronunciation. They once again foil one another. One is the perfect image of goodness, the other the absolute image of evil. Now, one thing people always bring up about Heracles is that he is stupid and that his decision to fight for the gods and then make them change their minds is idiotic and naive. And although yes it is, that is exactly the point, because what Heracles values is justice. He sides with justice no matter which side it lands on. It's not that he is pro-human and anti-god, he is just pro-justice. And hence he will fight for that justice. He didn't see Brunhild's way of fighting, Ragnarok, as the correct way to proceed. It wasn't the way that he thought sided with justice, as he is a demigod, one who seeks justice for both humans and gods. He wants what is best for both, as he is an envoy of justice, both for men and for gods. Fighting the gods directly does not conform to his view of justice, so he had no choice but to fight in the tournament when asked. Instead, he means to find a different way to save humanity, one that aligns with his way of justice. This is the reason for his naive actions, but of course that doesn't change the fact they are naive. Because let's be honest, even if he did win, he wouldn't be able to change the other gods' minds. His naivety and sincerity is one of his biggest weaknesses, and that is what Jack exploits in this fight. As the core theme of the fight is justice versus evil, of someone seen as a paragon of bravery and fighting for what's right, versus someone seen as an embodiment of evil and cowardice. Heracles is someone who lived by an ideal of justice, and Jack is someone who lives by a desire of murder. Heracles was someone who became a god in order to fight for what he believed was right. He chose to become a living embodiment of the ideal of justice because that is what he believed was his duty. Jack, on the other hand, became a murderer and killed his mother because it was the only way he could escape his own misery. He thought his mother loved him. He was the one child she didn't abort, so he must have been special to her. But then when she betrays him, he realises that true undying love does not exist, that he isn't special, and that the one thing that brought him happiness, his mother's love for him, was a lie. He becomes a murderer to see the fear in people, because fear is a constant in all people, fear will not betray him, and so he fights and kills in accordance to this desire, to cause fear in people, to see the comforting colours of fear, the emotion which unlike love will never leave him. We see Jack fighting for his desires to see fear, because it's the one thing that brings him happiness in his depressing life, and we see Heracles fighting for his duty, the one thing that brings him purpose. The fact Heracles allows him to fight in Jack's chosen arena is because justice prevails no matter the situation. Heracles took on all of Jack's attacks head on because justice does not run away. He acts in a way many would call reckless or stupid, but that is because no matter the situation, justice is uncompromising. Jack fights with tactics and schemes, with cowardice in contrast to Heracles' heroic style of battle. And this just goes back to their motives in fighting. Jack only kills to escape the trauma of his mother not loving him. He allowed himself to be corrupted and become a fear-mongering killer in order to forget his own pain. He runs away and schemes because he ran away from his trauma and uses fear to trick himself into being happy. Heracles, on the other hand, proudly stood up to the gods as his justice was more important than his life, and so he fights head on. Jack was picked for this fight specifically to counter Heracles, as in Brunhild's mind only evil can overcome justice. Jack then represents the idea of a necessary evil, of the dark side of humanity that even if it is shunned, is still part of us all. And by proxy it shows how justice, even with its grand ideals and principles, sometimes cannot win out against simple human nature. that we are chaotic beings, not ones of order, that humanity is not something that can be dictated by one demigod's notion of justice. And another contrast comes in what they intend to do in this fight. Jack the whole time is trying to do nothing more than kill. It's his nature at this point to kill, so that is what he aims to do. Yet Heracles isn't trying to beat Jack, he is trying to save him. There is no pure evil. I think that is a lesson of this fight. Evil exists, but it doesn't come from nowhere, and as a result, evil can be saved. Heracles' goal is to save Jack, which he does, and so he wins the fight, at least on a more thematic sense. Heracles, due to only following his own path of justice, could not agree with the tournament, but as a god he could not forsake the gods. It was too big a picture for him, so instead he didn't focus on all of humanity but just the human in front of him. It cost him his life, but he saved the one human he could, because that is what his justice stands for, protecting the weak. As Jack was weak, he was a child corrupted by grief. His goal was to instill fear in Heracles and kill him, like he had done to everybody else in his life. His goal was to once again see the pretty colours of pain, the colours that never left him, but he failed to do this. The great tragedy of this fight is that only by killing Heracles could Jack truly prove that the demigod's feelings would not change. Only by killing him could he prove that Heracles truly did love him. In order to find a person who truly loves him, the one person he desperately craved for his entire life, he had to kill them. He was saved, but in order to save Jack, Heracles had to die at his hands. Jack after this fight is left feeling a way he never has before, as it's the first time that he is shown that love can win out over fear, that true, never-ending love exists. This fight perfectly shows the harsh reality of justice and also the necessity of evil. But on the other hand also shows how even if the scale is small, justice can always prevail, and that even if evil is a part of humanity, it never comes from nothing and is something we can all rise above. Heracles died, but he died in accordance with justice. It is justice to save the weak that is the duty of the strong. So even if it cost him his life, Heracles died as a true envoy of justice, as he, the strong, saved Jack, the weak. And Jack, even if he won the fight, lost in his heart, as he finally saw that eternal love, the one thing that brought him happiness, really does exist, and had to once again take that love away with his own hands. Another word for love though is passion, and that is what I believe to be the central theme of the 5th round in Ragnarok, Shiva vs Raiden. But you'll have to wait till next video for that, as 4 fights analysed in one video is enough for me. So in the next Record of Ragnarok video on the channel, we will explore Raiden vs Shiva, Buddha vs Zero, and Qin Shi Huang vs Hades. Hopefully that will come out before the Tesla fight ends, otherwise I'll have to add another fight to that video as well, and these videos take long enough to make as it is. Comment of the week comes from QRS85, and thanks for your philosophical comments as always. And if you want to go the extra mile in supporting this channel, then consider pledging to my Patreon, where for as little as £2.75 a month, you can get your name at the end of the video, like Ikari Desu, 7SO, Ringjack9696, Dewey, and General Tonyos. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.